Just west of Knoxville, Tennessee, the small town of Rockwood sits tucked into the Appalachian foothills. Brothers Frank and Mark Epperson grew up hearing Cherokee warnings from their mother about a dangerous wild man hiding in the surrounding woods. Then, in 1981, those stories turned terrifyingly true. After weeks of hearing reports about missing pets, overturned trash, and something huge prowling the hills, strange noises erupted outside their mother's mountain cabin. Figuring a burglar was on the property, Frank grabbed his pistol. The brothers split up, Frank circling left while Mark headed toward the tree line. Within seconds, a sickening odor filled Mark's nose. Standing in front of him was a towering monster, tightly clutching their terrified dog with both hands. It grunted and suddenly charged in Frank's direction. Mark screamed, "Frank! Frank! It's coming your way!" I'm Uncle Perry. I don't just tell stories, I dig up the fucked up ones most folks are too chicken shit to talk about. And I do it in a cavalier kind of way. When it comes to cryptids, I chase down the truth behind the legends. Today, we're diving into the legend of a towering creature that many believe isn't a Bigfoot at all, but something far stranger, the Tennessee Wildman. Oh, hell yeah! It's post time, baby! It's time to crack a frosty one, kick your feet up, and let's get it! Knoxville, Tennessee. It's the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, and the surrounding woods seem to stretch on forever. Frank and Mark Epperson were raised there after their family left the city. Frank would eventually become a pastor. Mark became a welder. Despite taking different paths in life, they never forgot the warnings their Cherokee mother drilled into them as kids. Stay out of the woods. The Tennessee Wildman was real, and it's very dangerous. For years, those stories sounded like nothing more than bullshit mountain folklore. Then, December 1981 rolled around and shit got real. People all over the area began talking about their pets disappearing without a trace. Dogs and cats were simply gone. Trash cans were getting tossed and ripped apart. Neighbors reported hearing something enormous stomping through the hills after dark. Whatever was roaming those mountains wasn't quiet, and it sure as hell wasn't acting like any ordinary fucking animal. One Sunday evening, after a long day's work, the brothers drove to their mother's mountain cabin for supper. Around 7 o'clock, the peaceful evening shattered. Something loud crashed outside. Their family dog exploded into a fit of barking unlike any bark they'd ever heard before. This wasn't the normal, confident bark of a dog protecting its home. The dog was yelping and wanted to hide. Every instinct screamed that something was massively fucked up. Frank figured they were dealing with a thief. He slipped his pistol into his belt. Mark headed outside with him. Once they reached the yard, they split up because that's what you're supposed to do, right? Frank circled left around the cabin. Mark headed right, moving past the garden toward the dark tree line. As Mark reached the edge of the woods, a nauseating stench slammed into his mom. As Mark reached the edge of the woods, a nauseating stench slammed into him. The smell was enough to make him retch uncontrollably. Then he saw it. Standing only a few feet away was a towering creature tightly gripping their terrified dog with both hands. The poor animal wasn't barking anymore. It could only whimper through the claws layered over its face. Mark later said the fear he saw in that dog's eyes was something he'll never forget. The creature let out a slobber-filled roar, and without warning, it spun to the right and charged straight into the woods. Not at Mark, at Frank. Completely losing his shit, Mark gave chase, screaming at the top of his lungs. "Frank! Frank! It's coming your way, Frank!" Frank heard his brother, froze, raised his pistol, and waited. He could hear massive footsteps crashing through the brush. Branches snapped. Leaves exploded beneath something impossibly heavy. Every second felt like an hour. He expected a man, maybe a bear. Instead, two blazing eyes emerged from the darkness. Frank would later say it was the most terrifying thing he'd ever seen. The creature wasn't as massive as the classic Sasquatch legend. It appeared leaner, with less hair and a more human brain. It also had a more human face than Bigfoot. It stopped about 20 feet in front of him and stared. It was a standoff. For one chilling moment, Frank couldn't shake the thought that the creature understood exactly what he was holding. Does this thing know I've got a gun? The possibility was almost worse than the monster itself. Then it unleashed a scream, not a roar, not a growl, a piercing, gut-ripping war cry that echoed through the mountains and made both brothers freeze. The creature lunged at Frank. Frank fired his 9mm twice. The shots echoed across the hillside. The wild man staggered backward and answered with another slobber-filled, deafening scream. Frank compared it to the wail of an ambulance siren. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the creature disappeared into the darkness. The brothers stood there, shaking, alive and uninjured, but trying to process what the fuck just happened. As they caught their breath, Mark shook Frank and told him, "This is the Tennessee Wildman." For Frank, every warning his mother had ever given suddenly made terrifying sense. To this day, folks argue the Tennessee Wildman isn't simply another Bigfoot variant. They describe it as smaller, more territorial, and aggressive as fuck. According to Mark, if the beast truly wanted to kill someone, it easily could. That uncertainty is the most disturbing part of the legend. Whatever stood in those woods that night remains a mystery. But if the Epperson brothers are right, Tennessee ain't hiding a legend. It's hiding a monster. Lore description. The legend of the Tennessee Wildman goes back more than a century. In 1878, an article appeared in the Knoxville Daily Tribune explaining that a doctor named O.G. Broiler had something unbelievable in his possession: a captured Tennessee Wildman. According to the lore, an exhibition was arranged where several curious locals gathered inside a tent to witness a creature unlike anything they had ever imagined. Broiler stepped forward and announced that after a year of studying, researching, and investigating, he was ready to prove the legend was 100% real. Then came the big reveal. Of course, whether this was a genuine creature or some bizarre sideshow bullshit remains part of the mystery. Descriptions of the Tennessee Wildman paint a picture that looks like a twisted, fucked up version of a human being. It's often described as less ape-like than Bigfoot. Witnesses report it stands between 7 and 9 feet tall, covered mostly in dark brown, black, dark gray, or even dark ginger hair. Ginger. Unlike the classic image of Bigfoot, the Wildman is described as having a more human-looking face, with deep-set eyes, a pronounced brow ridge, and a flatter nose. Several accounts even describe piercing, glowing red eyes staring through the darkness. The creature has long arms that hang below the knees, broad shoulders, large hands with thick fingers, and long claws. Its footprints are massive, with a wide heel and spread out toes. But what truly separates the Wildman from other cryptids isn't just its appearance, it's the behavior. The creature is described as aggressive, territorial, and extremely strong. Reports show it throws rocks, shakes trees, screams from the darkness, and circles camps or homes at night like that drunk asshole neighbor that nobody likes. Several reports describe it pursuing hunters, chasing dogs, and even attempting to grab women. Encounters are often accompanied by a powerful stench that smells like skunk spray mixed with rotting flesh. A strange silence in the surrounding wildlife before the creature appears is often documented. The Wildman is said to live in remote ridgelines, abandoned logging roads, forgotten cabins, and in deep Appalachian hollers where the forest still dominates the landscape. Some legends claim it marks its territory with twisted trees and animal guts draped around, while others suggest it has a creepy, unusual intelligence, avoiding cameras, dismantling traps, and using tactics to separate people from groups. That's fucked up. Unlike the shy and reclusive Sasquatch, the Tennessee Wildman flat out doesn't give a fuck. It earned a reputation as something far more dangerous. Many groups have searched for the creature over the years, but they usually either find nothing or leave with a story they'll never forget. The Ginger Wildman of McNairy County. In 2012, a Tennessee Wildman encounter surfaced from McNairy County, Tennessee, a region with a long documented history of encounters with this monster. Matt Sieber saw something that matched many of the classic Wildman descriptions. According to Sieber, the creature stood around 8 feet tall, had reddish hair, and possessed glowing red eyes. But what made the encounter especially unsettling was the behavior. Sieber reported the creature was growling and chasing his dog, adding to the long-running pattern of Tennessee Wildman reports involving aggressive behavior toward animals. While there ain't a shitload of details surrounding the encounter, the sighting fits the same terrifying theme repeated throughout history. A large, powerful, hairy, human-like creature lurking just beyond the edge of civilization. The Caveman of Oak Ridge. Not every Wildman report involves a clear visual sighting. In July of 2019, a witness named Omega Groudon described a strange encounter near Oak Ridge, Tennessee. The witness asked a cryptid investigator, The witness asked a cryptid investigator whether the Tennessee Wildman was known to make a sound resembling a Neanderthal or caveman. The reason for the question was what happened one night in early July. The witness reported hearing a voice unlike anything familiar, describing it as sounding like an angry Neanderthal or caveman. Then, 2 or 3 seconds later, the sound of something moving through the grass followed. According to the witness, the movement sounded like something walking upright on 2 legs. There was no confirmed sighting, but the combination of the strange vocalization and the heavy footsteps left the witness wondering what the fuck was nearby. The Paris Hunter Encounter. One of the most detailed Tennessee Wildman reports came from near Paris, Tennessee in 1997. A seasoned hunter was positioned near a secluded creek when he heard something unusual near the water. What he saw was a massive, hairy figure bent over and drinking from the creek. The hunter was immediately struck by the creature's size, but even more noticeable was its insane build. The figure was extremely muscular, with enormous shoulders and a powerful frame that separated it from the typical image of a thin or fragile creature. The hunter watched carefully, trying to understand what the fuck he was seeing. Then, when he shifted his position and accidentally made the slightest noise, the creature reacted instantly. Its head snapped upward and looked toward the hunter. It let out a deep, powerful growl that the witness described as something that shook him to his core. The moment the creature realized it had been seen, it bucked off into the thick woods. What shocked the hunter the most was its speed. The creature hauled ass quickly and efficiently on 2 legs, disappearing into the forest almost instantly. Later, when describing the encounter to a local newspaper, the hunter said, "It was like the trees swallowed him whole, vanishing in a second." For many folks, this sighting represents one of the strongest examples of the Tennessee Wildman's reported combination of size, strength, and unbelievable agility. The railroad tracks encounter in Monroe County. In May of 2010, another Tennessee Wildman sighting occurred near Von Orr, Tennessee in Monroe County. A witness was crossing some railroad tracks with his son when he noticed something standing in the distance. Looking down the tracks, he pointed and asked his son, "What is that?" Approximately a block away stood a large, shaggy figure in the middle of the tracks. Unlike many nighttime reports, this sighting happened during the day, sometime between 3 and 5 p.m. The witness and his son stopped to watch the figure, trying to figure out what the hell they were looking at. They watched it for 5 to 10 minutes from roughly 150 to 200 feet away. According to the witness, the creature remained completely motionless while facing them. He described it as tall and heavy built, with a husky frame, long shaggy hair, and a light brown or tan coloration with hints of red. He could make out arms hanging down at its sides, but couldn't see enough detail to identify the face or hands. Eventually, another vehicle came up from behind them, forcing them to continue driving. The area surrounding the tracks is heavily forested, with creeks, ponds, and a nearby lake providing plenty of secluded habitat. The witness was familiar with the local wildlife and knew that bears were common in the area. But he remained convinced that what he saw was not a fucking bear. Skeptical explanations. For skeptics, the Tennessee Wildman is less likely to be an undiscovered creature and more likely a combination of misidentified animals, folklore, and human perception. The most common explanation is the black bear. When a bear stands upright on its hind legs, especially in poor lighting, it can appear surprisingly human. A large bear standing 6 to 7 feet tall, combined with wet fur, injury, or mange, could create the strange, distorted appearance described in some wildman reports. Another possibility involves escaped exotic animals. During the 1800s, circuses and sideshows were pretty fucking common, and newspapers sometimes reported escaped critters wandering into rural areas. Some skeptics believe early wildman stories may have grown from sightings of unusual animals that were later exaggerated. Skeptics also point to the power of folklore. The wildman legend shares similarities with The wildman legend shares similarities with European woodwose stories of hairy forest men, while Cherokee stories of forest beings may have influenced how people interpreted strange encounters. After the Civil War, communities were already primed to fear dangers hiding in the woods. Environmental factors could also play a role. Dense Appalachian forests, darkness, fog, shadows, and overall fuckiness can easily distort what someone sees. Even strange animal sounds like fox screams, bobcat cries, or owl calls can sound seriously fucked up. Ultimately, skeptics believe the Tennessee Wildman is a mix of wildlife misidentification, cultural storytelling, and psychological expectation passed down for more than 150 years. Believer explanations. For believers, the Tennessee Wildman is not simply a case of mistaken identity. They argue that the creature's unusual combination of human and animal traits suggests something far stranger hiding in the Appalachian forests. One popular theory is that the Wildman could be a surviving population of an unknown hominid. Unlike the massive, bulky image often associated with Bigfoot, the Wildman is described as smaller, usually between 7 and 8 feet tall, with a lean, muscular build and a more human or even Neanderthal-like face. Believers suggest it could be a living fossil population of an archaic human species, or a regional cousin of Sasquatch adapted to the dense Tennessee wilderness. Another explanation is that the Wildman is not a creature at all, but a human who's gone feral. Supporters of this theory point to the older descriptions calling it a wild man rather than a monster. They suggest that isolated individuals or even generations of off-grid families could have adapted to living in remote hollers, losing normal social behavior and becoming territorial. Others believe the Tennessee Wildman is simply a regional form of Bigfoot. They argue that Appalachian terrain could produce, via natural selection, a creature that is smaller, faster, louder, and more aggressive than classic Sasquatch reports. The screaming vocalizations, hairy body, human-like face and hands, and tendency to confront rather than avoid people are often cited as evidence. There is also a more traditional folklore explanation. Some believers view the Wildman as a supernatural forest entity, connected to Appalachian legends, Cherokee stories of forest beings, and old European woodwose tales. The glowing eyes, unnatural screams, sudden appearances, and overwhelming feeling of dread reported by witnesses are often used to support this idea. A smaller group of believers say that the wild man could be a hybrid creature, something caught between human and unknown primate. They point to its human-like face, animal traits, object throwing, and strange vocalizations as clues. Regardless of the theory, believers all agree on one thing. The Tennessee Wildman is not a misidentified creature hiding in the woods. It's intelligent, territorial, and capable of avoiding humans by watching from the tree line and using the landscape to its advantage. Whether it's a lost branch of humanity, a twisted version of Bigfoot, or a supernatural entity, the Tennessee Wildman remains one hell of a fucking mystery. Because sometimes the scariest monsters ain't hiding under your bed. They're watching through your window. After nearly 150 years of Tennessee Wildman reports, one thing seems pretty fucking clear. If this creature is real, it probably isn't the same individual haunting the mountains all this time. That means there's more than one of them out there. Or, most likely, the truth is something even far stranger. But here's the part that should make you think twice. Unlike the classic image of Bigfoot quietly hiding in the woods, the Tennessee Wildman is described as something that likes to start shit. Something territorial. Something dangerous. So, a word of advice. If you head deep into those Appalachian mountains, don't go alone. Take a gun or some kind of protection. Tell someone where you're going and when you'll be back. Because if the wild man is real, somebody has to know where to start looking for you. Do you like weird-ass monsters? Then tap that like button and subscribe. That way, you won't miss out on more of my fucked up commentary. And besides, I really do appreciate it. If you were standing in those woods and saw that fucker holding your dog, what would you do? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you're ready to crank that shit all the way up to 11, that join button's got your name on it. For just $2.99, you can have my back in a huge fucking way. Until next time, y'all keep it real, keep it chill, and stay creepy! Catch you on the flip. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. You are the real beast.